Thank you.
Um, last, well, I don't want to steal his thunder, but the star of the show is Shawn Langwell, and he's the immediate past president of the California Writers Club, the Redwood Writers branch, and they're actually the biggest branch. And he's also the past president of Toastmasters of Petaluma. He's an inspirational author, a public speaker, a confidence coach, a business consultant, and a marketing expert. And I wish he would join our branch because we're in desperate need of a marketing expert, but that's another story. Sean is the author of 4 books. The first one is Beyond Recovery. The second one is 10 Seconds of Boldness. And there's also a companion workbook to that, which I also have a signed copy of. And also, another book is Today's the Day. As you can guess, inspirational. He is also the host of Dare to Be Great and Dare to Be You podcast, which I can imagine I would like to tune into those. So, Sean, please take it away.
Bernard, thank you, and thank you each and every one of you who showed up today to learn a little bit. There's a lot of material here. I'm not going to do a deep dive, but to the best of my ability, I'm going to give you a nice overview to where you can hopefully walk away with a little bit better understanding, and if nothing else, some more confidence that marketing is not a scary thing. It is scary, but it doesn't have to be scary. And like anything in life, once we do it, once we skin our knees, fall down a little bit and get back up again, that's where we learn. And everything that I share with you today and everything that I write about is predicated on earned wisdom. It's experience. It's experience based. It's not theory. It's not some hyperbole. This is all who I am. And that's the only way that I know how to present. It's the only way that I know how to write. And that's what you're going to get today. So, the topic is demystifying book marketing for self-published authors. Now, this topic first came about from me doing some extra schooling for myself of learning how to be a better marketer and a better writer. And every single thing that we do as authors, everything we do when we're marketing ourselves is iterative. What I mean by that is that we start to distill down and synthesize little tidbits of what we like or what we don't like and incorporate them and combine them into something that can be a wonderful piece of literature. It can be a nonfiction piece. It can be a self-help, a how-to. But the bottom line for all of this is the most important thing that you can bring to the table is you. And I want you to just remember that up front because we're going to talk a lot about you and me, but that's all marketing is. It's about how to present yourself, how to put your best foot forward and tell a story in an engaging way that invites readers to join your party. So, as Bernard already mentioned, let's see if I can advance this. He already gave this stuff here. Here's how you can find me, and I'll have a slide at the end too if you want to shoot me an email. But most of my stuff is at shawnlangwell.com. My mission in writing 10 Seconds of Boldness, I really whittled down a mission that is true to who I am today. And I'm getting some personal coaching also. And the mission is to encourage and inspire and help people become brave and confident enough to believe that they can accomplish their dreams and goals. Whether that's as an author, whether that's as a business person, as a parent, as a civic leader, whatever it is for you, my whole purpose in everything that I do is about trying to inspire other people to step up and have that 10 seconds of boldness to be the best that they possibly can be. And it's not an Go Army commercial. This is just who I am and all that I really know how to do. So we're going to cover 5 key topics today. We're not going to do a deep dive into these. I'm going to do a surface level, maybe a little bit deeper on the number 4 down there, relevancy and how to be seen and found on Amazon. We could break that down into 4 or 5 different sessions, but I want you to understand as you publish or continue to publish and fine tune the works that you bring to press to share with the world, there are some things that you can do that you may not know that will help you be found. So very simply, what's in the way of your success? The fundamentals of marketing and shameless self-promotion, how to promote like a pro, relevancy and how to be seen on found on Amazon. And then lastly is really, if you have an intention of wanting this to be a business, you need to treat it like a business and you need to think of your marketing and your publishing career as a business. And to do that, you got to learn how to think like a marketer. So up front, what's in the way of your success? We all have our own little inner critics. We all have our own little demons that tell us that we're not good enough, that we can't do this. We compare ourselves to the next bestseller. We wish that we could write better, clearer, and we stay stuck in this cycle of um, not finishing a work if we've been working. Heard a lot of people talk about books in progress. And if what you get out of this today is the inspiration to complete what you've started, however long that's taken, then that's a win. So really, what's in the way of your success? We all have common fears and obstacles. There's two different perspectives. There's out there and in here. And what I mean by out there is there's some external obstacles that we don't have a whole lot of control over, but I'm going to share with you some tips on how you can kind of mitigate those and be seen. Obscurity and irrelevance are the number one problem for every single author, whether you're self-published or traditionally published. If people don't know you from Adam and you don't already have a pool of raging fans that just love your work, you're going to have to work hard to find that audience that loves the work that you bring forth. And that comes from the internal side. What are you sharing? Are you animated? Are you passionate about what it is that you're writing? Or do you just want to write it because you want to write it for your own sake or pass something on to your kids? That ties into motivation and what's really important to you. There's people that, I can't remember who it was, but they have a collection of letters going back probably 70 to 100 years of grandma's letters. And those epistolary things can become a wonderful, wonderful story, even if they're put together in a way that's historical nonfiction. So it's about taking these pool of life experience and turning it into a fiction or a nonfiction story and a narrative that is inviting and engaging to the readers. The obstacle is that we start to second guess and we have writer's block and we have imposter syndrome and we have all this other crap going on in our heads that don't think that present a block for us to be able to move forward. For example, you can look at the list there. I know for a fact, myself included, the number one on there isn't necessarily fear of speaking or marketing or imposter syndrome. The number one thing that gets in the way of most of us is procrastination. And ironically, procrastination is tied to all those other things. Procrastination is a fear-based behavior, and it can be solved. And you know what the easiest way to solve procrastination is? Anybody? Do something. Just do something. Don't worry about the results. Just do it. Nike made $1 million billion on that slogan. But it's true. If we get out of there and stop worrying about what other people are going to think or us not being the best that we can possibly be, and we actually take a chance on ourselves, that's where the magic in creativity and marketing start to happen. Because what happens is we start to believe in ourselves because we're stepping out of that proverbial comfort zone. We're extending our hand. We're learning how to fumble over our own words when we talk about what it is that we write or what we're excited about. So, do any of these sound a little bit familiar? Does anybody relate to how they make you feel? When I do something, even still after I've done hundreds and hundreds of different talks and presentations, I still get the butterflies every single time before I speak. And it usually takes about 5 to 8 minutes for me to warm up and then get into a flow. So if you want to learn how to move through this, you just do it. So there's some fundamentals of marketing and shameless self-promotion. I've been in sales and marketing in the advertising arena for media companies for the better part of three plus decades. And I'm still learning how to do a better job at it. There's a saying in the sales arena that, often salespeople will show up and throw up. And it's true for authors too. And what I mean by that is you show up and somebody says, "What do you write?" And you dive into this dissertation of an entire synopsis that's like 5 minutes long of a book that you're writing because you're excited about it. But the element that's missing there is asking a few questions or learning how to connect with a potential reader or customer if you're doing this in person and even online and with the marketing blurbs that you write is finding out who those readers are and what they like. And if you don't know that, anything that you say may just go right over the top of them. I don't read a whole lot of historical nonfiction. I know there's some great stories out there. One of the members in our club has written her fourth book now, and she's done all these twists and tales of Rosie the Riveter. She's also a huge, huge self-promoter, and anytime we do book fairs, she sells more books than anybody else because she's assertive and aggressive, but she's also enthusiastic about what it is that she's written and finds ways to ask questions of people to bring them in. So the fundamentals of marketing and shameless self-promotion are not rocket science, folks. They're three things, and this is true whether you're an author or a marketer or a business owner or an entrepreneur. It's been pounded in my head the last 10 years at my job as a advertising sales rep for a local newspaper. You need to know your audience. You need to know what you want to say to them. And you need to know, most importantly, what you want them to think, believe, feel, or do. So from a craft standpoint, there's two sides here. We have two parts of our brain. There's the creative side and there's the logical side. The challenge for most authors is to try and find a way to merge those two. We are complete human beings, and there's ways that you can learn how to incorporate some of the marketing into your creative process. But start with what you know best. And if you know how to create a kick-ass story arc that has the twists and turns and ups and downs and the tension and builds this engagement that pulls the reader in that they have to read the next chapter, that's all that you're doing with the marketing side. And we'll explain how to do that a little bit more later. But the bottom line is, no, I don't know, there's 30 or so folks here. There's some that have multiple genres, and the key that I would want you to do is to really zero in on what you enjoy best, and that can be what you like to read and what you like. And then study what others are doing. Read those books. Study what those customers like to read. Read the reviews of the books that you've read and look for tips and insights into the positive reviews as well as the negative reviews. It's a very simple thing that any of us can do. And that helps you zero in onto who your core audience is, either age or gender wise, interest, the various tropes for fiction writers out there. And then you come down to the second part, which is knowing what you want to say to them. What kind of a story? My wife writes romance. Is it an enemies to lover romance? Is it a small town romance? Is it a cozy mystery, or is it a crime thriller? Is it a how-to book on how to do whatever? Jokingly, underwater basking weaving. I don't think it's a thing, but I've always said that. How to write a book in 30 days. Well, people who are finishing up right now for NaNoWriMo, that's actually a thing that millions of people do every single year. It can be done. But the most important thing of all these three is, what do you want to leave the reader with? What do you want that person who's sitting across from you at a book event want to do besides just buying your book? I've had tons of people buy my books, but they haven't read them yet. If they don't read them, it's not going to do me any good. So, how do we engage the potential reader either in written form with our marketing materials or from our personality to get them to lean into where they want to read that book? And then when we deliver that, what is the story that we are telling that brings them along, that gives them an aha or says, "Oh my gosh, I relate to that." Look at the memoir that Cheryl Strayed did. It's a very simple coming of age, a divorcee trying to find herself. She goes on a hike for the Pacific Trail and writes about it. And the one thing I remember out of that entire book was when she was just frustrated carrying that big ass backpack along the Pacific Coast Trail and she lost her shoe. And she persisted anyway. And she kept going. And it didn't relate so much to me, not just because I'm a guy, but because I didn't totally relate to it, but I enjoyed the story. And there's tons of stories out there like that. I'm in the process of rereading The Alchemist right now. If you want to see a story of having great meaning and finding purpose in life, Paul Coelho's The Alchemist is one of the most widely read stories of all. So the point is, read those things that you like to read and then model, take what you like that works for those and start to deconstruct it and apply it to what your genre is and help you identify your own audience. So, little pause here. I want everybody to get 100% on this question, and I hope you all get it right. But if you want to unmute, if you're on Zoom, what is the best form of marketing? And then I'll answer the question of how you create it. But what is the best form of marketing? It's word of mouth. It is word of mouth. It is, and it always will be word of mouth. So the point of what we're trying to do as authors, if we want to have commercial success, is how do we perpetuate people talking about the books that we have? We got to be interesting. We have to kind of combine things in a different way or have a different perspective or our own unique perspective so that people go, I got that. Even if they don't directly relate to it, they understand the emotion or the feeling or the angst or the agony of having to make a tough decision. And then they want to know what it is that the main character, is going to do in this situation. Situations that most of us have had at some point in our life, regardless of what it is we're writing, unless it's a serial killer thriller that I hope that none of us have. But those are still very interesting tales. So the key is really, how do we build relationships with hundreds and thousands of raving fans like Swifties or Beatlemania only for you? And this may sound pie in the sky, but you know what? During the pandemic, Taylor Swift cranked out 3 albums, 2 or 3 albums, and went from where she was, even kicked her record production company to the curb and said, "Screw you guys! I'm going to redo my entire library and I'm going to reap the profits out of that." That was a business decision, and she hasn't looked back ever since. Metallica, who started down here in Marin County, is one of the most successful rock bands for the last 30, coming up on 40 years, taken on the heels of Beatlemania. So how do we do that as authors? I don't know if you have this grand ambition like I do or my wife does to want to be one of the most influential, inspirational authors of all time, but I do. And how am I doing that? I do things like this. I engage people with conversations to find out what it is that they want and what gets them going. So going back to what I said earlier, we let our passion show and we get comfortable having uncomfortable conversations with our potential readers. That means engaging with them on social media until the following gets to be so big that we have to hire somebody else, God forbid, to do that for us. It's about sharing the ups and downs in critique groups or writing groups or club meetings. It's about connecting with your fellow writers and asking what their struggles are. And it's about sharing your own. And in the process, it's also about learning how to frame and shape the conversation that you want to have with your potential readers. See, when you know what somebody's looking for, it becomes a lot easier to offer it to them. Here's a different example. I was a food server, a really good food server for probably 20 years. It's how I put myself through college. There were many slow nights at this time of the year where um, other people wanted to go home and I stayed there. And what ended up happening was I ended up building relationships with these customers on slower nights. Much to the chagrin of my coworkers, I had people coming in and saying, "Yeah, we want to sit in Sean's station," and it felt good because I was giving something of myself to entertain, to provide good value, to let them have a good time, and for the compensation, I got tipped very well for that. So, how you promote like a pro is by learning how to do it. even if you don't know how to do it. And at some point, you have to learn how to get out of your own head. So we'll go back to those three questions. The art of self-promotion is not rocket science. It's learning how to ask
Right.
questions and engage. It,
Oh,
yeah,
oh, really? Good.
I don't know who's unmuted there, but that's okay. So you connect with what you write, connect what you write to them. So every single one of us on this call right now, on this meeting, at the end of the day, we are selfish folks. We want to know what's in it for me. And if anybody tells you any differently, they're full of you know what. So understanding that from a self-promotion perspective is about asking some questions. Going back to the restaurant analogy, people I would see that on their face sometimes that they had a really stressful day and maybe they got in a fight with their significant other before they showed up for dinner. And I would say, it looks like you had kind of a rough day. Would you like a cocktail? Can I interest you in? And I would give us very specific thing. And what ended up happening was not just the alcohol. I don't drink, but it lowered their guard. It helped make it easy for them to lower down and drop to a level where they actually would enjoy the rest of their meal. So the same thing, when you connect what you write to the audience and you give them what they want more of it. And sometimes you have to mess with your readers. You don't lay it all out. And this is, as a nonfiction writer, this is really hard for me because I know where I want to go and I want to put that stuff up front. But part of the process is helping to guide people along so that they discover elements of themselves as they're going through whatever it is you're writing, that they become invested and engaged with your main character, with the villain, with the with all of it, with the emotion, with the scene, with the setting, with putting themselves in the book. And when you're able to accomplish that from a creative perspective, you can also take those same very skills and apply them to a self-promotional sense. It's just asking some different questions and reframing it. And what I mean by that is the posture, the enthusiasm, and the care. So I'm not going to do this now. If we were going to do this in person, I would break out and do 5 minutes of an elevator pitch. But what I would like for each of you to do is to go back to identify your top one, two, or three genres that you really are passionate about wanting to write in. And practice when somebody asks you what you do, or if you are still working full time like I am, what you write. Practice that until you get it down to a 10-second response with a smile on your face. And if it's in relation to a particular book, make it real clear and succinct about what that book is. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but give me 1 sec. I was lazy, I'm a procrastinator, and when I was doing this, the workbook here, I spent probably a week and a half continuing to drill down to what the key bullet points are that I thought my readers would want. And I came up with a couple things that I read in other reviews, that there's lots of things that talk about over promising, making money. And I'm like, this isn't about promising things that I don't have control over. That's indicative of somebody else's effort. But what I could say was that it was proven, it was powerful, proven, and practical. It was powerful because it worked for me. It was proven also because it worked for me. And it's practical because this is not rocket science. I took existing ideas that have already been out there, turned it into a 5-step plan, and showed people how they can apply that to any goal that they have or to their writing or whatever else it is. And then I listed 5 or I don't know, 10 or so bullet points, but the log line, if you will, that I came up with is this inspiring workbook offers heartfelt guidance to overcoming fear and excuses. It is ideal for authors, artists, addicts, entrepreneurs, students, business owners, leaders, and those who want to slay their inner critics and become bolder, more confident, and decisive in their personal and professional lives. Subsequent, that's a lot. The bottom line is it's powerful, proven, and practical, and it can help you move from where you are to where you want to be in a time that works for you. And that's what that book does. And that's not just a pitch, but that's what I would like for you to do with your synopsis and your book blurb is think in terms of this and think in terms of what your reader might like to read so that it's not just selling it, but it's a conversation that you're having with your potential reader. The last thing on here is confidence doesn't come in a vacuum. You don't get it and then you become successful. Confidence is a product, not a prerequisite of success. What I mean by that is that you become more confident as a speaker, as a self-promoter, as a marketer, as an author, as a parent, as a teacher, as whatever it is that you do by doing it. And it's not until you make a whole bunch of mistakes and learn from those mistakes that you actually get better to the point of not only confidence, but ultimately over time, mastery. Here's a few expert self-confidence tips. I already touched on some of these, but you know, the biggest thing here is that everything does get easier when you're honest with yourself, you have some courage, and you practice. That honesty part comes with knowing what you're good at and knowing what you're not good at. Not every single person here needs to become a marketing expert or a self-promotional pro. But if you have an intent to be a guest blogger or a guest writer or a guest on somebody's podcast or radio show, or you're intending to be facing the public, you want to have some of those basic fundamentals down so that you can talk about what it is that you do with enthusiasm, not fear, with joy, with this just, I've done this. And you know why I say those words? Because that's what attracts other people. You can have the worst written book in the world, and there's tons of people out there that have done that, but they have great marketing behind them and they have enthusiasm and encouragement. And you know what? They're top of the bestseller list. And a lot of those books, folks, are crap. You know it, and I know it, but they've got a different spin on marketing. So if you're able to create the craft and have better marketing, what could happen? So, what would make you feel a little bit more confident about self-promotion? I think one of the easiest things to do is to look at when you do publish, whether you do it on Amazon or Ingram Spark or wherever you do it, is to do a few things that help you move from obscurity into the sweet spot of where your best lane is. I got a bookshelf behind me. You want to be on the right bookshelf. So when people are looking for parenting guides for troubled teens, or they're looking for, you know, there's people that love historical fiction, and they also, it's not just historical fiction, they may want historical New England fiction, or they want historical World War II stories of nurses or things of that nature. So narrow it down, but don't make it so narrow that there isn't a big enough audience for you to actually make some money at this. So what am I talking about here? This is the meat of this presentation outside of the internal stuff that we've already been talking about. These 5 things align themselves very well with the 5-step process that I have in 10 Seconds of Boldness. These are the 5 keys that you really need if you want to improve your book's visibility and relevancy. And they're not rocket science, folks. What I encourage you to do is just browse the books you like to read on Amazon and look at the best-selling covers. Look at the book blurbs, read some of the reviews. Ask yourself, is this the lane that my book belongs in? And you'll start to see some patterns, and then you can model the color schemes, the type fonts, the design of the cover, the subtitle, the title. And they all matter because the way that digital media works is it's driven by the biggest rocks first. What I mean by that is the cover. You can't digitize that per se from a search perspective, but the title you certainly can. The subtitle you certainly can. And then the categories and the book description, as well as the 7 KDP keywords and phrases. So That's a lot. I'm going to walk you through this and give you some examples because I don't want your brains to melt with all this stuff. This has taken me about 2 years to kind of digest for my own book publishing business. I understand it from an ad sales perspective, but this is a different application of stuff that I've practiced for 30 years and applying it to my own business, which makes it a little bit harder. So in terms of genre and categories, I already mentioned what bookshelf section does your book belong on? And then for the blurb, this is going back to what I said earlier. As you're writing, think about what that 10-second elevator pitch is that you want about your book. That can become your book blurb. And for me, because I write nonfiction, I often come up with the title and the subtitle and or the categories or the hook for the book before I even dive down. Now, you don't have to do it that way, but writing the hook before the book gives me a direction because sometimes I'll end up going off the rails and forget that this is the key theme or topic that I want to talk about. The 7 KDP keywords and phrases are, go back again to what genre, trope, niche, or category you want your readers want. So there's ways that you can put, when you list your book to be published on Amazon, you have the opportunity to put in 7 keyword phrases. And I'll show you briefly, I'm not going to do a deep dive on how you can kind of fine tune what those are. And the last part is ads and promotion, PR and cross promotion. Just treat it like a business. You can spend money if you want to, but get these first 4 things done first before you invest money on trying to spend, money on Amazon ads or Facebook ads or social media. So why do you think these 5 keys are important? Why do they matter? They matter because we are conditioned to go to a grocery store. If we need bread, we're going to go to the bread aisle. If we need milk, we're going to go to the dairy section. If we need meat, we're going to go to the butchery. If we need seafood, we're going to go there. That's why our brains automatically work to categorize stuff so that we can understand whatever it is that we're trying to understand better. And a bookstore is a classic example. This is a personal growth section of a Barnes and Noble up in Santa Rosa. One of our members actually followed my advice to go hit them up and ask them to put it on the shelf, and he was able to get it not only on the shelf. I gave him some very clear suggestions after an event like this. In fact, it was this event last year that you need to go there and tell them, here's the section that I would like it to be in. I want it in personal growth, and it's a book about parenting and dysfunctional families. So where does this belong? I went up there to look, and it's right there in psychology, and there's a subcategory for the exact category that I asked him to ask them to put it under. He's only one of 4 books in that section. So that automatically took this entire bookstore with thousands and thousands of books and drilled it down into something very specific that he has a book that can reach that potential reader. Here's some examples of title, subtitle, and cover. A little side note here. Once you publish a book, the true subtitle of Beyond Recovery is The Journey of Grace, Love, and Forgiveness. I learned after the fact that you can't change that once it's been published without putting in a new ISBN number, but you can change the Kindle version because that's generated by Amazon. So I was playing around with, can I do what's called keyword stuffing and throw a whole bunch of buzzwords in this subtitle? In hindsight, I'm probably going to change it because it's a way too long subtitle. But after I did this, it quickly climbed in the rankings. The other thing that I did is I started looking at these reviews that I had, and there were some really good reviews. And because we like word of mouth and we like people, we like to buy things that other people recommend. I'm like, let's just see what happens if I put a couple of these really good, like, hey, couldn't put it down what others are saying. I highly recommend this book. What would happen to the sales? And sales went up when I made those part of my book blurb. I did a similar thing with 10 Seconds of Boldness. The actual subtitle is The Essential Guide to Solving Problems and Building Self-Confidence. I played with this because there's a book out there called Stop Overthinking that is very poorly written, and it's also self-published, but the guy's selling tens of thousands of dollars worth of that book a month. And I'm like, well, how can I do that? I'm not there yet, but you can copy. It's okay to copy what other people are doing that's successful. Um, and then just some other copy points that I continue to play around with. I don't dive too deeply into those, and I don't change them that frequently. Again, here's the book description that I talked about for Beyond Recovery. And then on the workbook, I actually repurposed the same book blurb here that I did for the main book because I didn't want to change it. It's reaching the same folks, and it's okay to say the same thing. Now, my wife writes a completely different genre than I do, and she's very, very successful at doing this. She created this series. This is book 2 of the Sunset Bay series. And she has in here what we talked about earlier. She's got an attractive cover, right? She's got a clear title of the book. She doesn't have the subtitle on the book, but the subtitle is here. And in fiction, what a lot of times authors do successfully is to whittle down and narrow that focus for the trope or the genre and put that in the description right here as the subtitle: a small town enemies to lovers romance. That's all she needs to say. And then she jumps into in medias res and talks directly about what this book can do. He ruined my life. Now he's ruining me for any other man. Now you've immediately, in one sentence, you've got tension. You read the next line. I met Mac the last night I lost my apartment. What felt like the worst night of my life turned into one of those insta-love romance stories I hate. And he had me reconsidering my stance against relationships. And it goes on. This book and the entire series have catapulted my wife to not be able to quit her job, but she was competing with some of the Colleen Hoovers of the world. She showed up with some book bubs and other deals that she did as a promotional sense to get as high as number 35 in a couple of these categories. So I'm going to come back to that in a second, but I want to spend a few minutes here focusing on these 7 KDP keywords phrases. So this is on your author dashboard on your book when you're creating the book to set up to be published, and you can go in there and edit it. But I looked at what some other books in my genre were about, and I started including these. You don't need to put just one word. They're forgiveness books based on spirituality. It's a recovery book for alcoholics, 12-step, AA, NA, OCD, etc. So fine-tuning those is a lengthy process. I actually work with private clients to do some of this. It's a detailed process. It requires a couple hours of research to go through and identify what those correct phrases are for a particular book. But it's iterative. It's something that you continue to fine tune, and I don't change all 7 of these at once. I may go with this for 30, 60, or 90 days and then say, you know what, this one isn't doing so well. Let's mix this up and see if there's a better one here. And I'll change 1 or 2 of them. The result is the relevancy. By me doing some of these things that I'm sharing with you, this first book I wrote in 2016, Beyond Recovery, is perpetually in the bestsellers of a particular category, obsessive compulsive disorder. I found that to be a sweet spot for this particular book, as well as some of the other books I've written. It's not always, but a lot of times it's in the top 100 of obsessive compulsive disorder. It's gotten as high as, that is the highest it's gotten. It may have gotten number 8 at one point. But the bestsellers rank, this is of all of the books in the Kindle store, not just this genre or this category. That's of the millions of books that are out there. It's gotten to be 137. My wife's had even greater success. Just this year with that Sunset Bay series, she's got the equivalent of over 2,500 orders this year alone. Most self-published authors are lucky if they sell 250 books in a book's lifetime. In terms of Kindle page reads, she's had just since January over here 716,221 pages read of all 27 of her books. On an average of 300 or 400 pages per book, that's close to 20,000, no, 2,000 books. Overall, since her first debut novel, A Symphony of Cicadas, she has over 1.5 million pages read. There's been months where she's had 4-figure months driven by a promotion. I've learned from her. She learns from me. We learn from you. You learn from us. We learn from each other. And, you know, at Redwood Writers, our whole mission statement is writers helping writers. So we didn't do this from pie in the sky. We did it from hard work and practicing the stuff that I'm sharing with you today. It takes effort. It takes diligence. It takes a lot of boldness and courage to be willing to make some mistakes and fall down and not do it right, to fail frequently. But over time, every new book that she publishes and every new book that I come out with and every new talk that I give, I learn something a little bit new and nuanced that enables me to do a better job the next time. So how do you think and write like a marketer? You put all this stuff together. There's three critical questions for you to ask and for you to answer. I can't answer them for you. So these are for you to say to yourself, what changes do I plan to make to become a better self-promoter? How important is success to me? And lastly, what does success look like to me? If it's just publishing the epistolary chronicles of a historical nonfiction of grandma's letters from 100 years ago, to have a book put together in a very fun sense to give it to family so they have something that you can be proud of, hallelujah, that's great. If it's the next best crime thriller to follow in the heels of James Patterson or some of these others that have had Netflix series turned into them, you got to start somewhere. So that somewhere is what I talk about in 10 Seconds of Boldness too. It's about having a clear plan and figuring out what that plan is. The 5-step process is to identify the problem or the opportunity, to have a clear idea of what it is that you want to do, know why you want to do it, create a plan, and then work the plan. That's simple. It's simple on paper, but we're human beings and we tend to want to complicate things or second guess it or procrastinate or put it off. So that's basically what I'm all about with this demystifying book marketing and how to be a better self-promoter. So, you know, what's next? There's always a next. I'm amazed at how many people, including myself, when I first started waiting tables, I couldn't even say the specials to a customer. I was looking down at my shoes, and finally I got into a rhythm and I learned how to say the specials, and I'd sell out the specials at the restaurant. So on January 11th, the week before your guys' next meeting, I'll be doing an hour and a half long presentation on how to boost your self-confidence. This is live now. If you want to save 10 bucks, which will get you in the door for 25 instead of 35, enter code CWC. That QR code is live. Take a screenshot. I will provide this presentation afterwards. Bernard can send it out to all of you, but I'm going to be doing that. And depending on where you are in your author journey, if you ever need further coaching or you just need a sounding board or somebody to bounce ideas off of, or you want to do work on your pitch, I do also offer help for putting together book blurbs or doing the category or keyword research, which is not my forte, but it's something that's fun if somebody's excited and enthusiastic about wanting to improve their overall relevancy. There's my contact information. Very simple, Shawn Langwell writer at gmail.com. I'm very responsive if anybody emails me. And if you want a free 15-minute consultation, if anything I've shared here has struck a chord and you want to take it to another level and you're serious about that, shoot me an email at that email there and say, yeah, I'm interested and we'll set something up. So in person, I was going to do this. I cannot do it, but I do not want to leave you hanging. So what I will do is this. If you join my mailing list down there, because I will see it and say yes, just say yes. You don't have to say yes about the coaching, but yes, I want the free freaking book. Say yes. I will do a randomized drawing and I will make sure I have your mailing address. I'm not going to give you a PDF. I will give you a signed copy of 10 Seconds of Boldness. And Bernard got one because he corralled it from me when we were at the president's meeting down in Oakland last year or the year before. So do that. Your support is my support, and I give that support back to you as you move along in your own author's journey. Part of this whole process is networking with other authors, even in different genres, and just sharing in this whole process together. So thank you all, and I'm going to shut up and be available for any questions you might have.
Well, first of all, Shawn, thank you very much. That was most excellent and very informative. So, round of applause. Thanks. And also, I was going to ask a question because you mentioned quite rightly, fail often, fail fast, blah, blah, blah. But, and that's one of my mantras as well. But, and I'm certainly not an expert at this. But my question was going to be, how do you survive that failure rate? Okay, I learned that to some extent, but I was going to ask, do you have an answer to that $64 million question? But I'm guessing that 90-minute virtual workshop would assist in answering questions like that.
It's a great question, and again, it's really. I came up with the concept of 10 seconds of boldness because I've been in sales for 30 years and my sales, I started the book 5 years ago. And in the middle of doing it, it was going to be a goal setting book. I've taken great pride in writing and setting goals. And I was like, I'm going to do this great goal setting book. And in the middle of it, my sales started to tank. And I started to have that aha imposter syndrome moment. And I'm like, I've been doing this too long. What's really in my way? And to be totally frank, what was in my way is business was pretty easy for me. When business came in, I would close probably 70 to 90% of those leads that came through. The challenge for most salespeople was actually getting bold enough to pick up the phone and do outbound calls. It's called cold calling. And because my numbers were so low, I didn't have a choice. If I wanted to put food on the table and keep a roof over my head, I had to figure it out. So I wrote on a literal post-it note those 3 words, 10 seconds of boldness, 4 words. The point is, Bernard, I figured it out. I sucked at first. I had that post-it note in front of my phone for 2 weeks before I had enough courage to pick up the 10,000-pound phone. And then I started making calls. And then this other thing that happened in the middle of that, it's called a pandemic. So people were all scared and buttoned down and how am I going to do this? The long and short of it was I didn't give up. I just kept falling down and doing it. And I came from a place of how can I help you maintain your business? This is really hard for you. I'm here to help you. What can we do to help? And I engaged with new customers in a way that I never had before. The end result of that was my sales for 2 consecutive years through the last 2 years of the pandemic grew by 35 and 45% year over year. So this is not theory. This is not BS. This is just, figuring it out. So the short answer to your question is you just do it. You be willing to take a chance on yourself and be willing to make some mistakes and have somebody come along with a red pen and circle it and say, no, this is a run-on sentence. No, that is not a M dash. This is a semicolon or a colon or a period or turn it into 2 sentences. I mean, it's the same thing we deal with as when we're working with an editor. So it's applying it to a different part of our brain, which is marketing. But we all know the value of constructive criticism and critique when it comes to our creative process. It's just about learning how to take some chances in something that we may not know from a marketing sense. Does that help?
Yeah, definitely.
Who else? I see lots of names here. I don't know what to do there.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Shawn,
Yeah.
you had meant, well, I think what I was really impressed was the statistics that you got from Amazon, I guess, when you entered your 7 KOP keywords, and I think that's really cool. I went through Ingram Sparks, so I'm not sure they have as great a capacity to give me feedback on the sales. But I'm wondering, did you publish through Amazon?
I did both. I published through Amazon and I did publish through Ingram Spark. There's another company that I'll probably do next time for self-published work. It's called Draft to Digital. They found a way that actually can do both. We had Jim Azevedo come up and speak for us at the Sonoma County Writers Conference in October. But he's accessible. He's down in San Jose, and at some point, if you want to have him come up and do a talk for your club, I'll be happy to introduce you to him. I think it would be incredibly helpful because there's nuances there that are different on Ingram Spark in terms of how you structure your categories and your keywords versus Amazon. Amazon is much more data driven. Ingram Spark is more of a laundry list. And when I did my last 3 books, there was no real cutoff. I could just keep throwing new keywords out there. And that's not necessarily the best way to do it.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Terry, I want to hear from you because I know you write nonfiction too. You have any questions?
Well, see, my problem is I'm not really a writer. I'm a retired nurse, but I've got this amazing story. And like you said, it's old letters and you're putting together somebody's old history from 100 years ago, but it's a damn good story. And I really felt compelled to write it for a long time. So I'm trying to figure out how to do that. So I think I'm going to be like a writer that writes one book and then says, okay, now I'm done. So I'm not really sure how that will work, but I really find that this writing process is sucking me in. Like more and more of my time is spent at my laptop and I really enjoy it. And I'm currently working with a person that's editing, like I'll write a chapter and then her and I'll kind of work on it. So I haven't really knitted my book together yet, but it's this process of just I'm just trying to make meaning of the story through writing about it. And it's really helping me a lot. So I don't know how this marketing stuff would like apply to someone like me. I would just put this book out there, like you said, and sit in like maybe some relative shelf and that would be it. So I don't have any big aspirations for it, but it's a true story. And it's about someone who had a lot of political influence back in the 1920s. And, it's got a murder in it and stuff like that. So it's got a compelling plot line. But I don't know how I would market something like that. I'm an unknown, I'm a nurse, I'm not a writer. I can barely figure out what I'm doing, but I really like it. So that I'm not sure what's going to happen. And the other complicating factor is I don't social media at all. I don't like it. I don't want any part of it. So I think I would be a flop as a self-promoter. So I have no idea what's going to happen when this book is done, but it's a really good story.
Well, and that's just to not to beleaguer a point, but that is regardless of what we write and what our intent is, we want to put our best foot forward with whatever it is. And oftentimes on the very first, what Anne Lamont lovingly says, the shitty first draft, just get that stuff out. Don't worry about what you're going to do with it, publish it, market it. I have a mind that's preconditioned about marketing, so I always have the marketing wheel here. But when I'm writing some deep emotional stuff, i.e. memoir type stories, I put all that stuff aside and it's like, get to the core of the story. So I'm excited about what you're working on, and there's probably some great stories, and you got my ears perked up when you said a murder and political stuff, because then you can get a political thriller out of it. I mean, look at Conclave, which they're promoting the heck out of, is probably going to be the best picture this year. And they took an
Yes,
old
yeah.
idea and turned it into something new at a very particular time that's going to probably be the best picture. So,
Wow. Well,
yeah.
that would be like a dream come true, right? But be
Yeah.
careful what you wish for. But I really like to know people to know that this was a true story, right? And all this stuff went down and it has historical relevance. So that's what I like in a book. There's something you can learn something from.
There you go.
Terry, it's Bernard here. I'm not a writer, and I'm president of a writers group. Um, I have a technical background in software, and I wrote a lot of documentation. I thought, yeah, write a book, that'd be easy. A total flop, but critique groups, absolutely essential, and you learn a lot. And also writers' clubs and groups, and watching and listening to presentations such as this, and not just marketing, but also writing. And like, for instance, I had to learn how to balance dialogue with narration and point of view and all this sort of stuff. It was difficult, but it's the journey. Forget the destination, just
Right,
enjoy the ride.
right. Totally agree with you, Bernard. Yes. Thank you.
Hey, Shawn, this
Yes.
is Dana Michaels. I have a question about the keywords thing. I've never quite gotten, or I don't know whether I have not gotten a straight answer or whether I just don't get it. But I've asked people before, how do you determine what the best keywords are for your story? And people say, well, type something into the search bar and then see what comes up. You only type part of the first word or part of a couple of words. And that doesn't tell me that that's what anybody who might want my book is looking for. Is there any way to do that?
I'm running ads on Amazon, so I can see the exact key. I can run a search terms report, so I can see exactly what the key phrases are or words that people search to land on my book or click
Ah,
my ads. But in the absence of that, the advice that you got, certainly find the sweet spot of whatever you think is a sweet spot for a genre that you feel like you belong in, and just let Amazon populate the search terms just by putting in one or two words. For example, I don't want to do it live because it'll detract from here, but go to Amazon and say you'd like to read erotic thrillers or whatever it happens to be, murder mysteries. And then when that'll automatically populate, and you'll start seeing all these other sub genres or categories.
yeah.
Then what you do is you take those and copy and paste one of them, put it in there, and then start drilling down and looking at the other books and looking for books that are similar to yours. And it's a methodical process. It takes some time, which is why I charge people to do this, but it can be done. And it's also fun because I stumbled across OCD. I mean, I am OCD and I didn't even want to admit it, ironically. And I'm like, well, why don't I put this as a category? And then it started seeing traction. So that's one of my keywords now. Um, so there is no perfect, I guess the main answer is there is no perfect one way to do any of this. A lot of it's trial and error
Okay.
and finding those words that you feel are closest to what it is that you want to write about and then going from there.
Okay. Thank you. And thanks for
Absolutely.
this presentation. It was terrific.
You bet. The other thing before I forget is you don't always have to be in the closed walled garden of Amazon. Back it out and go to Google and type those in,
Ah,
see what happens, because that will give you a much different perspective that's not tied into a writing community. So that you may find, because at the end of the day, one of my IT friends told me this at my 40-year high school reunion. He says, you know what the best website is? And I'm like, no, what? He's all Google. Because Google keeps track of everything, every podcast,
including us.
every video interview, every article that you've written. If they type in your name, it's going to be tied to that. And next thing you know, you've got all this stuff showing up. So
Uh,
don't overlook the obvious, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Sometimes
okay.
the simple solutions are the easiest ones to get your head around.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Hi, Sean. I have a question. My name is Luann. I
Luann.
currently have 2 books out that are literary fiction, but I'm finishing a 3-book series that's women's fiction. I'm not sure what the difference would be in promoting a series as opposed to standalone books, and also if there is a difference in promoting different genres.
It has to do if you are you planning on writing 2 or more books to a series, or have
It's
you?
a 3-book series that's
Okay.
coming out, well, that I want to come out.
So when you I don't have time to do it here live, but there's a way. I'm still botching it. I made 10 Seconds of Boldness a series and attached the 10 Seconds of Boldness workbook to it, but I'm not totally crazy about that. In your case, though, you can create the series as you're setting up the book so that there's a link there. And I don't have time to show you right now, but I can get that information to you if you want. Um, you want to put the emphasis on the first book of the series for your promotional efforts because that draws people in. Now, in my wife's case, she had Masquerade Mistake as the first book in the series, and Naked Coffee Guy was the second, and then the other one was Savior Complex. She's seen a lot of traction for Masquerade Mistake, but with that cover of a bare-chested dude with 20-pack abs, that drew people in. And
Yeah.
oftentimes what ends up happening is the marketing for that, they like the writing. It's not just fluff. There's a great storyline behind it. All of a sudden, they're like, we like this author. We want to go read all 3 of them. So they may start in the middle and they'll go back to Masquerade Mistake and then get Saber Complex. It's happened numerous times. So the key is make it easy for your audience and your reader to know that this is part of a series.
Okay.
And you can set that up on Amazon as you publish.
Okay. Okay.
And even if you've already published, you can link them after the fact. There's
Yeah,
a
they're
way.
not out yet, but did she discount the first book to
She
get?
did after it came out, and she did a couple book bubs to drive readership.
Oh, okay.
It blew up. I mean, at one point, I think when Masquerade Mistake hit, she had some ungodly number of page reads the first month, which was I've never seen anything like it. I mean, she's been
Wow.
writing for almost 12 years now, and it was pretty fun to watch where it just starts climbing up the rankings, and we're like, holy crap, you're right behind Colleen Hoover in
Wow.
Out Us. Are you kidding? She actually passed Colleen on one of her books for a brief moment, but
And she's self-publishing?
yeah,
Wow.
she
Thank
taught
you.
me pretty much everything I know. You're welcome.
Any questions online? Some people are muted, so I guess not. Well, with Sean's permission, I've recorded this Zoom meeting, so that will be published on our website. And he also provided me with very kindly with his slides. That will be also in the same place, and we'll mention it in the newsletter as well. So, wow, unless there's more questions, I don't. And bear in mind that he has think of that 90-minute virtual workshop. I'm sure that will be very valuable. So thank you very much, Sean, and another big round of applause.
Thank you all. Thank you, Bernard. And, happy writing. Writing does not have to be an arduous chore. When we allow the joy and the pain of our lives to come through in the written word, that's where the magic happens. It's not about the marketing. The magic happens when we drop down to a level of writing something we're incredibly passionate about and we share that with the world. And that, for many, many folks, is a huge step. It's a scary step, but give every single one of yourselves a pat on the back because you've written something, and some of you have already been published. And that is a dream that 90% of the people in this country have that you have already accomplished. So start with that success and go from there. That's how we do it.
What I always say, if I could do it, you can do it better.
Anything you can do, I can do better. Thank
There's
you.
a song there somewhere.
Bernard.
Oh, now I'm going to start singing Mary Poppins. Oh, thank you all for having me.
Thanks, Shawn. Thank you. Bye.
All right.
Thank you, Shawn.
Thank you.